So I think we are all set. We can just begin with our workshop. And I'm very happy to have you.
Thank you very much. Will you permit me to remain seated? If I'll be more comfortable, maybe you will be more comfortable too. Everybody can see it. It's a wonderful setup. Yes. Well, I was looking forward meeting you in person, seeing your faces, and it is a very grateful occasion to me to be here. And now that you can see me, somehow it came to us to talk about seeing what is not visible. So I came here to show myself to you so that you could learn to see what is not visible. Well, the title of our talk today somehow evolved out of nowhere, and it is to deal with learning to see the unseen. Or what's so great about that? Okay. And what would be good about seeing the unseen? And what is it anyway? Now the Apostle Paul said, "We look not upon the things which are seen, but upon the things which are not seen." What did he mean? Who knows?
Sitting down at the area.
Yes. Very good. Right. What is the importance of learning to see the unseen, and what makes it so difficult? Yes?
Then the wall of the God.
That's right. And what is so important about seeing the qualities of God?
By
Very good. As thou seest, so thou beest. In other words, by learning to see the unseen, we become transformed and resilient, because our fulfillment is dependent on our capacity to see. Now, ordinarily, if people talk about seeing, they assume that they are talking about seeing with the eyes. But the eyes can only see light and shadow. The ears can only hear sound. The senses can give us information about form and formlessness. That which is tangible and form. That which is intangible is formless. The famous Zen master boggled our mind by saying form is formlessness and formlessness is form. What did he mean? Is it sort of a koan? Form is formlessness and formlessness is form. It means that the visible world consists, the material world, consists of form and formlessness. For instance, a table has form, has a form. But we say green. Green doesn't have form. It's formless. Right? Now, therefore, we have to expand our idea of seeing. Because seeing, the word seeing, relates to all the five senses and beyond. Can we see with our skin? No? Can we see? Certainly. When I touch something, I see with my skin, right? My skin can see form, texture. Can we see with our ears? Yes, with our ears we can see sound and direction of sound, right? Can we see with our noses? Certainly. We can see odors, right? Therefore, all our senses can give us information about form and formlessness. Therefore, the Zen master challenges our thinking to the realization that formlessness and form really belong to the same category. They can be perceived through our senses. We call this perception. Perceptivity is a function of our senses. So, with our sensory apparatus, we can see form and formlessness. Now, what good is it to go into this detail? It has a purpose. Because everybody is asking the question, why is it so difficult to become enlightened? Why didn't God fix it so that everybody would be enlightened right away, yeah, from the beginning? Well, it is difficult because we have to learn to see. We are used to seeing form and formlessness. This is the most elementary, natural way to be in the world, judging by appearances. This is called perception. Now there is another way of seeing, and that is called cognition. What is cognition? Feeling. Intellectual. The cognition is intellectual. How can we see with our intellect? Right. We develop in the course of growing up certain preconceived ideas about what should be and what shouldn't be. And then these ideas take over our faculties of seeing. And we are not seeing what is, but we are seeing what we think that it is. Now, visualization was mentioned here, and it is becoming very fashionable, especially in California. make a big to-do about visualization and imagining things. Now, what does visualization do? Visualization gives us certain ideas about what should be. Now, the more strongly we practice visualization, the more our ideas about what should be will interfere with our ability to see what really is. Therefore, visualization and imagination will hamper our ability to see. Now, beyond cognition, there is another way of seeing, and that is called empathy. Have you ever heard of people who can empathize? What is that?
Feeling one another.
Yes, we can see how other people feel with our feelings. Our feelings resonate with the feelings of other people, and we can develop a great facility of empathizing with other people. So we can see with our feelings. Yeah? We can see with our senses, we can see with our thoughts, and we can see with our feelings. And with our feelings, we can see what is sympathetic to us, and we can see what is antipathetic to us. Which means when we see with our feelings, with some things we like and some things we don't like. Now, in psychology, for a long time it was believed that it is a very good theory, just like it is now believed that visualization is very good, it is helpful to people. There was a time when the faculty of empathizing was considered very good. And it was encouraged, people were encouraged to develop that faculty of feeling what other people are feeling and to empathize. As a matter of fact, it was considered to be a sign of love. A sign of love, to be able to empathize. I feel with you, we say, right? I feel with you. Now, what are we seeing when we are seeing feelings?
Feel toward
Emotionalism. So what is the value of that? Beg your pardon?
It's one of the 5 days.
That's right. That's right. So now metapsychiatry has discovered that all these faculties of seeing, and there are more, are not so helpful, because what you are seeing is not reality. And what's the good of seeing unreality? It's like if you were a mathematician and expert on finding mistakes in arithmetic, and you wouldn't know the right arithmetic. You would only be an expert that discovered it. You wouldn't know what is not true. And you wouldn't know what is true. What good would that be? Right? So, our senses cannot tell us what is real. our cognition distorts what our senses would be telling us. And our empathy helps us to see something that is not real either. And we can sympathize or we can antipathize with it. Now there is another way of seeing, and that is called telepathy. Now there are some people who develop the faculty of empathizing to a very high degree, to such an extent that they can even feel what someone feels at a distance. And these are called psychics and sensitives. And then we have to be very miraculous. Some people have the ability of feeling at a distance or in the past, in the future. They are psychic. And we marvel at their sensitivity and the information which they can pick up from thin air. And we are very impressed by that. But again, we have here people who are remarkably perceptive of unreality. Expert is seeing unreality. Now, beyond telepathy, there is intuitiveness. What is intuition? Intuition is a faculty of being aware of something that is happening or what is going to happen. You can be intuitive about something good, but you can also be intuitive about something bad, right? That is called a premonition. So you have here a faculty of seeing something not so much in terms of space, but in terms of time. The telepathic seer sees things in terms of space. The intuitive seer sees things in terms of time. You can intuit something that will happen, and you can intuit something good or something bad. You can have an intuition that somebody will win on a lottery. You can have an intuition that somebody will meet with a disaster. So again, we have remarkable faculties of seeing, but this seeing too is the faculty of seeing unreality. Now you see, if we are so talented in seeing unreality, that's the reason that it is very hard for us to reach a point where we develop the faculty to see reality. With all this wealth of information about unreality, who has time to bother with reality? So we have hundreds of various schools of psychotherapy and all sorts of schools of psychic miracles, transformative and telepathic geniuses. But if you remember that these are all miraculous, magical ways of seeing unreality, you will not be unduly impressed. Because after all, in the final analysis, we must come to know that 2 and 2 is 4. It is not 6, it is not 500, it is 4. So when we are learning to see the unseen, first we have to understand that what we ordinarily see and work on seeing is actually seeing nothing. Because if we see on reality, we are not really seeing anything. And it complicates life, and we are cut off from God. Now, the Bible says, God is spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Now, what does this really say? That unless we can be aware of divine reality, unless we have developed a faculty of seeing reality, our prayers are mostly futile. How can we communicate with reality if we specialize in seeing unreality? Therefore, it is vitally important to outgrow all these various ways of seeing and reach a point where we can begin to see reality. Now, when we have reached a certain degree of disappointment with seeing unreality, then we become interested in seeing reality. And the Bible says that reality is spiritual. And you already know what the word spiritual means. What does it mean?
Devoted.
That is not quite explanatory of the word spiritual.
No, I'm not here.
Money, yeah. And but more than three. Yes?
Then we're
Well, of course that is true, but what is it? Non-material what? Substance. See, we are used to thinking of substance as material. Matter is substance to us. The spirit is non-material substance.
spirit have something to do with breath of life.
The breath of life, what would that be? The breath of life.
Not prejudice.
Fresh air. Yeah, the old could use a little fresh air. Now, when Jesus had a talk with Nicodemus asked him about God and the kingdom of God. What did Jesus say to him? That you must be born again. And Nicodemus couldn't understand. And Jesus tried to explain to him what spirit is. And he said, it bloweth where it listeth, and thou hearest the sound thereof, but whence it cometh, and whither it goeth, no man knoweth. So that it cannot be seen in an ordinary way. Spirit cannot be seen with any of the faculties which we are used to seeing.
that we read
From the Bible, who can quote it from the Bible? It bloweth where it listeth, and thou hearest the sound thereof, but cannot tell whence it cometh or whither it goeth. Such is the man that is born of the Spirit. Now, in order to see the unseen, it is important to know that the seen is just there for contrast. For instance, if there were no darkness, we could be living in the light, but we wouldn't know that it is light. Right? If there were no untruth, there would be only truth, but nobody would know the difference. Right? It is so set up that we know and we can see things in juxtaposition. So, in order to see the unseen, we have to first understand the seen. And the seen consists of form and formlessness. When we empathize, when we intuit, when we see telepathically, we see formlessness. But that is not spiritual. That has nothing to do with reality. That belongs to the phenomenal world. The phenomenal world is here to create a contrast for us, in juxtaposition to which we are able to discern the unseen. Now, the Apostle Paul said, natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness to him. Neither can he know them, for they are spiritually discerned. Here, the Apostle Paul suddenly confronts us with a new way of seeing. And he calls this spiritual discernment. Now, spiritual discernment is an entirely different way of seeing. This seeing is called awareness. And the faculty of this spiritual discernment sees what is neither form nor formlessness. Imagine that there can be something that is neither form nor formless, and yet that is real. And the form is form and formlessness is unreal. So the Hora that you see today is not the Hora which is real. Because the real Hora cannot be seen with the eye or heard with the ear, or empathize with or sympathize with. How can the real Hora be seen? How can the real Hora be seen? Or Jan, or Anne, or anybody else? How can we see one another as we really are? By being loving? Well, that helps.
Would it have something to do with being the concept?
Yes, of course, that's what we said, by juxtaposition to the scene. Ordinarily, we get so fascinated by what we see and feel and hear that we get completely distracted and we don't see spiritual quality. We see the clothing, the hairdo, the coloring, we hear the voice, the inflection. We feel what somebody else feels. And we are fascinated by the phenomenal world, by form and by color. But when we are on the spiritual path, we must go beyond that. And we can learn to be aware of spiritual qualities which everyone is manifesting, whether we know it or not. So, when we have reached the level where we have the faculty of spiritual discernment, then we can fulfill
Good.
when we have developed the faculty of spiritual discernment, our attention is focused on the spiritual qualities which we discern everywhere in the world and in everyone. That's what we are looking at. And as we cultivate interest, we can see more and more honesty, integrity, peace, assurance, joy, love, wisdom, freedom, harmony, beauty in everyone. Our attention gradually gets used to seeing these qualities, and our interest is growing in spiritual values, in seeing them everywhere and manifesting them everywhere. And the result is that we develop the capacity of beholding. What is beholding? Those of you who have read the books, you know that we speak there about the prayer of beholding. Seeing the good of God right everywhere. Becoming aware of infinite omnipresence. Of God, infinite omnipresence. Now this the prayer of beholding is the most powerful prayer there is. And it is the supreme point where man becomes a beneficial presence in the world and a spontaneous healer, a focal point of harmony and healing. And this is the secret of how Jesus healed. Jesus was able to look at that individual leper or a paralytic and behold him in the context of his divine perfection. And the result was spontaneous, instantaneous healing. Now, let's make one thing clear. We are not talking of visualization. We are not talking about imagining a sick individual to be a healthy person. See, when we are trying to help someone or heal someone by visualizing him as healthy or not sick, we are just meddling in unreality. We are trying to replace one unreality with another unreality. We are still living in our own brain, whether it's the left brain or the right brain. It makes no difference. And this is, of course, also the difference between psychic healing and spiritual healing. In psychic healing, it is the imagination of one human mind trying to exert an influence on another human mind in a curative fashion. Spiritual healing is on an entirely different level of consciousness. Contrary to visualization, it is based on emptiness. In order for us to become able to see the unseen, we must be liberated from all the images and tendencies to calculate, to think, to exert personal mind power over our fellow man, so that our consciousness becomes a transparency for God's healing presence, for divine love to freely flow through our purified consciousness. So it's quite something entirely different from visualization and imagination. Of course, this is not very attractive to many people because we would like to believe that we could have personal mind power. Everything in our education and upbringing encourages that idea that we have a good head on our shoulders, we have minds of our own, we cultivate these minds, and we develop a certain mental muscle, personal mind power, and we can use our imagination and visualization and hypnotism and suggestion and influence one another mentally with our own mind. And of course, it has been the story from time immemorial. There was a Svengali, there was a Rasputin. There are all sorts of people who are exercising hypnotic, miraculous powers over their fellow human beings, which seem to be temporarily, at least, benefiting. Certain cures can be produced through the teeming influence of one mind upon another. But these things are mischief makers. Because the more successful one becomes in practicing personal mind power, the more insane he is getting. With every little success, he is moving in the direction of disaster and failure. Because he is dwelling in the realm of unreality. You see how important it is to learn to see the unseen. The more perfectly we can purify our consciousness, sometimes we call it a spiritualize our consciousness, the more perfect transparencies we become for the divine mind to do its healing work through us. And the power which heals and blesses and helps others around us is not a personal power. It is the power of divine love which flows unimpeded through such a consciousness. Now perhaps you remember that in the book we quote Heidegger, who was distinguishing between calculative thinking and inspired thought. Under normal circumstances, we are inclined to be calculative thinkers. What does that mean? Yes, we are learning to use our head and figure everything out for ourselves. And this is the domain of the collective belief in personal mind power. We measure the IQs and also we believe that some people have stronger minds than other people. And that, of course, is the human condition. It's inevitable. We all grow up into it. But those of us who are on a spiritual journey recognize that this is not what we are meant to be. That we have to outgrow the illusion of a personal mind so that we may truly become transparencies for the divine mind. And then we will be recipients of a continuous flow of wisdom and love and creative ideas from an infinite source. And that will not only heal all our problems, but will make it possible for us to live harmonious and creative and fulfilled lives. It appears that the whole purpose of life is this particular journey, which everyone has to go through sooner or later. The path is now clearly understood. It consists of 7 steps: perceptivity, cognition, empathy, telepathy, intuition, spiritual discernment, beholding. These are the 7 steps, 7 markers on the road towards spiritual enlightenment. Now, what is the value of knowing about these markers? Exactly that we will not get seduced or getting stuck at any of these points. Because if we don't understand this process, we can be very impressed by psychic healing powers, by visualization techniques, by guided imagery, by all sorts of hocus pocus. You know, even in biblical times, there were magicians who could produce all sorts of phenomena, very impressive, which they were competing with the genuine prophets. And even today, I understand in various parts of the Orient there are all sorts of fakirs and gurus and miracle workers who can make very impressive performances. And if we don't understand the pathway towards spiritual realization, we can become victims of these invalid ideas which are forever being presented to us. And even at this time, there is a great danger, and I saw it in California much more than in the East, that people will become impressed with the idea that you can imagine yourself into health. And somebody can help you to guide your imaginations from sickness to health. You can think yourself into health through visualization, or you can think yourself into becoming a millionaire, or you can get anything you want. It's clearly nowadays you can get anything you make up your mind that you want it, and you're going to get it if you are just going to think about it in a certain way. It's a very attractive idea, right? Who wouldn't jump at it? Yeah. But if you have a clear understanding of the process of spiritual development, then you will see through it that these are just the devil's way of enticing you into the illusion of a personal mind power. And you will not fall victim. You will not get stuck on the way towards the most important objective in life. Learning to see the unseen. Learning to reach a point of what the Buddhists call sunyata. Who knows the meaning of that word? Yes? Emptiness. Did you know what they meant by it? Yes? It's the clarity of consciousness, which is uncluttered by all sorts of fantasies and preconceptions and invalid ideas. Man is an image and likeness of God. Therefore, the meaning and purpose of his life is to become a transparency and a channel through whom God can manifest himself in the world. How does God manifest himself in the world? Through the qualities of love, intelligence, and creativity. And Peggle. Who knows what Peggle is? You all know what Peggle is, right? Isn't Peggle a very helpful way of gauging ourselves in our quest for spiritual enlightenment? Whenever we reach Peggle in our prayers and meditation, we can be sure that we are on the right track. So, seeing the unseen is seeing reality. And it is of great value to know that. The unseen is the real, and the seen is the unreal, by contrast to that. Any questions? Yes?
I don't understand what thinking spiritual third.
Gladly, thank you. Spiritual discernment is a means of becoming a beholder. You see, we can begin to pay attention to spiritual values, spiritual qualities within us and around us. And thereby we can reach a point where we have the capacity to be aware of God's infinite presence in the whole universe. And we see every individual in the context of divine love intelligence. And at that point, we have become beholders. And it is a beholder who is truly a beneficial presence in the world, whose mere presence creates an atmosphere where good things can happen. You know, there are some people who come into a room and suddenly things start starting falling off the table. Chairs are breaking and dishes are cracking up, the ceiling cracks up. Once I received a telephone call, and when that individual said hello, suddenly the ceiling broke through and rain started dripping into the room. At that particular moment, now wouldn't you say evil has such great power? It's very impressive. It's almost frightening. Yeah? Of course, she didn't cause that crack to happen in the ceiling. It's just a meaning. Evil manifests itself, or evil thoughts manifest themselves in discordant experience. But we must not be impressed by evil, because if we are impressed by evil, then evil will be our God and control us. Of course, it's very difficult not to be impressed by evil unless we have reached a point of understanding the reality of pure finished good. One of the great problems of hypnotism is our susceptibility to it. You see, some people are so susceptible to hypnotism that they don't even realize it, and they are influenced by it. Have you ever seen a hypnotist work in public? He starts, for instance, he says, if you clap your hands, and if I count to 10 afterwards, you will not be able to open up your hand. And pretty soon after he counts to 10, at least 10% of the audience are unable to pull their hands apart. But these are people who are highly susceptible to hypnotism, to suggestion. It's not an organic condition or anything serious. It is just a belief. People believe in the power of this man's mind, that he has a special mind which has certain power to hypnotize people. If you believe that, you become what is called a medium or a sucker or something. And of course, similarly, we can get hypnotized by evil reports from various parts of the world, if we are susceptible. But if we have reached the level of spiritual consciousness, then we can look at these things and remain unimpressed, not clicking and think, unimpressed.
You asked, you asked how we see the spiritual dimension, and I said in contrast to the phenomenal.
Right.
Is there more to that? I'm wondering if there more we can look into the world.
Yes.
Easier, better.
But I like to tell a Zen story which illustrates this issue very well. It's a Zen story, well known, most of you may have heard it before. It says, before I took on the study of Zen, mountains were mountains and rivers were rivers. After I was deeply involved in the study of Zen, mountains were not mountains anymore, and rivers were not rivers anymore. But after I became enlightened, mountains were mountains again, and rivers were rivers. Now, what does this say? It speaks of the development of the capacity to see. Before he studied Zen, he was naive. What does it mean to be naive? It means to judge by appearances. What you see is what you get. That's a naive way of seeing. When he became involved in the study of Zen, he became intellectual, he started speculating at everything that he was seeing, and labeling it and interpreting it. And already then mountains were not, he became sophisticated. A sophisticated individual doesn't see what is in a sensory way. He sees it in terms of certain meanings and thoughts and interpretation. It is a sophisticated way of seeing, which is just as unreal as the naive way of seeing, except more impressive. But when he became enlightened, he could see with an innocent eye. What is the difference between the naive eye and the innocent eye? People? Yes? Right? Right? Yes? With purity. That's right. With purity of consciousness. We see reality in the context of spiritual values. Yes, yes, sure. Yes. So there is a difference between a naive way of seeing, a sophisticated way of seeing, and with the innocent eye. Those of you who are artists will appreciate it because you can tell the difference between a kinch or which a phony art between a real art which portrays what an innocent eye. Yes? Yes. All right. We'll talk about it some more after our first period.